Yesterday I watched a film from 1951 called Quo Vadis that is a sword and sandal epic that wasn't very good. I thought it would be better than it was, but one of the main attractions about the film is it has Nero as one of the major characters. And Nero, along with Caligula, went down in Western history as being the epitome of super rich degeneracy and complete decay of moral values. It seems to be that this characteristic is related to extreme wealth, because if you don't have to work hard for stuff and you can satisfy all of your pleasures quickly and immediately, and you don't have constraints on you, then you're just going to get into weirder and weirder territory um, and hurt yourself and others around you. Sometimes working a long time for something is the best part of getting it, actually. So I'm talking about this because my friend sent me a news story from Yahoo News, which is, basically trash, but still sometimes worthwhile. And it was about a sex cult. This sex cult is interesting mostly because of what it reveals about the way that the world works and about what might be going on in other places that we can't so easily see. This sex cult is outed at this point. It is being openly discussed on trash level news sources like Yahoo. It was reported last year in the New York Times, and the powers that be have seen fit to allow this to happen, either because they couldn't keep a lid on it and they had to get ahead of the story and go ahead and publish it in the way that they wanted it published. And you can even find it on Wikipedia. And if you know a lot about Wikipedia, you know that it's very heavily controlled, and certain things don't stay on there very long at all before the editors come and just remove them, or the activists, whatever they actually are, come along and remove them. So all this stuff is completely out in the open. I'm going to try to go briefly through the structure of this cult before I talk about the ways in which it's significant. The cult originated with a guy who simply wanted to make money through typical pyramid schemes and multi-level marketing. The way that those operations work is you got to give them some money, and then they franchise you out to go bring in more people, and if you're effective in that, they will cut you in for a little piece of it. And the bigger the operation gets, the more people get drawn in, and eventually it collapses when the lowest level groups can no longer bring in new people. That's basically how this works. So apparently the guy was originally doing this with some sort of commodity stuff, like either groceries or drugs or some kind of consumer products, but that got shut down, and he then moved on to something that couldn't be so easily shut down, which is a self-improvement material. So he's going to tell you the secrets. He's going to tell you the secrets of life, the secrets to being a happy person or to improving yourself, whatever. And you're going to pay him for the privilege, and then you're also going to go recruit new people. Now, the way that this becomes a sex cult has something to do with the psychological differences between men and women. If you know the big 5 personality traits, you know that one of them is neuroticism. You know that women are more neurotic than men, which means that they respond worse to stress, they have more anxiety, they have more self-doubt, they've got all these kind of problems. And if you have those problems, then and you don't have like a stable family life or whatever, you've got some kind of issues, you don't have a happy family, then you're going to go look for solutions. And this guy was offering solutions. So it became a sex cult because he had a hell of a lot of women coming around. And you might imagine if you're a guy who has low morals, and you're some kind of moral nihilist or whatever, and you got 1,000 women who are taking part in your pyramid scheme, your self-help, your self-improvement stuff, there might be 10 or 20 of those 1,000 women that you're very interested in having sexual relations with. So how do you convince those women to have sex with you? What the guy did was he formed an inner group inside the outer group. And right here already you can see parallels to what? Freemasonry. You can see parallels to all kinds of other organizations that we talk about a lot. There's the outer group that is there for one reason, perhaps benign, and then there's the inner group that knows more and is there perhaps for something malignant. So what was done is that there would be certain women who would go out and would collect other women. They would bring them in. They would subject them to patterns of emotional abuse and show them, for example, really violent videos, or put them through weird authoritarian social programming, like you, for example, have to text me every day before you go to bed, and then also as soon as you wake up in the morning, and then throughout the day I'm randomly going to text you and you have 60 seconds to respond. And then if you don't do it in time, then you've earned a beating, or some kind of punishment or something like that. So this is apparently the way the sex cult operated, is that some of these women would go out and be able to find these other women, and they would do really weird cult stuff like blindfold them and transport them from one place to another in the middle of the night. They would go through these initiation rituals, and then one of the straws that broke the camel's back is that they would brand these women with I think the guy's initials or something like that. So they would physically brand them, your chattel slavery, your property, you're not a human being anymore. And presumably all this was just to break their will so that they could be used as, sex objects and not be people anymore. So that's the basics of how it operated. The two most significant ways to me why this is really important. The first and major one is because this thing was operating at the top levels of society. Two of the women who were in this organization were heiresses to the Bronfman family fortune. The Bronfman family was one of these, I don't know, I guess you could call them the new ideal for American, the new kind of American who is promoted by our leaders and the world leaders, the globalists. They were Jews from the Russian Empire who left because they didn't like the nationalist program that the Romanov family in its later years was putting forth for Russia. Did not suit them as ethnic outsiders, so they came to America, and with their 260-point IQ, as Jordan Peterson would point out, they were able to go from hauling firewood to being billionaires in a period of about 50 or 60 years. Pretty good, right, for an immigrant? Yeah, so that's the model, and it only works for a certain number of people, certain number and type of person. But these people are some of the ones who are in the cult, donating tens of millions of dollars to the cult and helping it operate. Those two women in particular, their father was the president of the World Jewish Congress, which was funded by the Rothschilds, which is the major arm for world Jewry and international relations. So these are people who are coming from the very tip top of both financial and religious groups in the world. I think one of these women who was in the cult, and these are people who didn't just come for a weekend seminar, right? They were there for 15 years or something like that in this cult. One of them was married, I think, to some sort of Libyan, I don't know how you say, Libyan industrialist, and had also been sleeping with one of the bodyguards or inner circle members of the Dalai Lama. So again, these are people who are moving in the very top structures of the world. If there are people who are masters of the world, these people, if it is not they are right there along with them. They get invited to the same parties and all that kind of stuff. So that's who was in this cult. It wasn't just some people from eastern Tennessee or western Kentucky or something like that. And it was the very top people on the crust of the elite. The second most important thing about it is that there's two people in jail right now. One of them's the cult leader himself, and the other one is an actress, a woman named Allison Mack, who was functioning as a procuress. She was going around trying to recruit women to be sexually abused by this cult, and was doing the dirty work apparently of like threatening these women, saying that they would be killed or hurt, or that their families would be killed or hurt if these women didn't have sex for money and that kind of stuff. So it's extremely important to me that it was an actress, a young, white female from Hollywood, not from Hollywood, but working in Hollywood, who's being used to recruit people for a sex cult. So when you start looking at something like Pizzagate, let's say, and the most extreme, most improbable version of that kind of stuff, you explain it to somebody, they're like, the evidence doesn't really seem like it's here to support this kind of thing, but overall there's something weird going on with it. It makes me feel a little unsettled. When you start bringing this kind of stuff in and saying this is on the New York Times, this is on Yahoo, this is on Wikipedia, this thing is completely out in the open, everybody agrees that this really happened, it takes the most easy to believe version of Pizzagate, and it brings that completely into the realm of totally being possible, and it takes the most outlandish version of Pizzagate and brings that much closer to the realm of possibility. So that's why I wanted to talk about this degeneracy and the abuse of people who are suffering from some kind of mental or psychological problem has been going on probably since the beginning of human history, but we would be out of place to say that we don't have the same problems as in all the other worst periods of human history. And I think we've got some evidence that our elite is just as corrupt and morally degraded as anything that was going on during the Roman period. Thank you for your time.